Welcome to the House Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. It is Thursday, March 5th, 2 p.m. here in Conference Room 325. My name is David Tarnas. I'm the chair of the committee, and I appreciate everyone being here to provide testimony. It really helps us do our job better. If you're testifying, please limit your testimony to 2 minutes. I'll ask you to summarize at that point. If you're when you're providing testimony, come up to the podium here. The microphones are in the ceiling. Just use your regular voice, articulate well. The microphone will pick up your voice and amplify it in the room, and then it goes online. But it also picks up every little whisper you make to your neighbor. So I would urge you to keep that to a minimum. For those who are testifying on Zoom, please keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify, and again, turn it off after your testimony is complete. Use the Zoom chat function to communicate with our technical staff if you have any technical issues. If you're disconnected, please rejoin as soon as you can, and I'll do my best to allow you to finish your testimony if time permits. If the power goes out in our room here and we have to reschedule our hearing, I'll post appropriate notice so you'll know what we're doing when. And if you're testifying on Zoom, please avoid using any trademarked or copyrighted images. And as always, when you testify, please refrain from profanity or any uncivil behavior. It's okay to disagree, but let's not be disagreeable. We're all working together here. For today, we have numerous measures, but we have one measure that I would like to move up to the top of the agenda. We have a testifier here that has requested that, and I want to accommodate their request. So I'd like to move up House Bill 1531, House Draft 1, to the top of the agenda. This measure is relating to emergency announcements. This requires the governor or mayor of a county to provide an American Sign Language interpreter during each official announcement broadcast via television or the internet during a state of emergency. It requires the governor or mayor of a county to ensure to the fullest extent possible that the American Sign Language interpreter's face, body, arms, and hands are visible during the broadcast, just like we have here. Requires the governor or mayor of a county to provide a primary pool feed for any live official announcement that includes an American Sign Language interpreter in a picture-in-picture window and does not require broadcasters that rebroadcast the official announcement to independently generate or insert this accessibility feature. First up, we have the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency and Support, not present. Next, we have Christine Pagano, Disability and Communication Access Board.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm hoping the interpreter can see me. She's quite far away, but I'll do my best. Okay, now she can see me. Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and Vice Chair Poi Poi. Committee members, as I see here today in front of me, my name is Christine Pagano, and I'm with Disability Communication and Access Board, DCAB. To my left is Brian Nick, and he is the Program and Policy Development Coordinator. Would you like to say something?
Good afternoon, everyone. The Americans with Disabilities Act defines effective communication and states that communications with individuals with disabilities must be effective as communications with others.
And so it happens in the case of an emergency where how can we provide equal communication? So Brian will provide some brief moments and examples of how this could be effective communication, how we can interpreters, something or others, how we can equivalate that message.
First example will be with no voice.
As you just experienced just now, people who are deaf and hard of hearing, this announcement, they will be looking at the speaker, but they will have missed everything that is said. They will not have access to what is being announced. The second announcement, people, if you could please watch on the screen, watch the captions.
Okay. Hurricane Upana is currently 500 miles northeast of Honoka'a and is expected to trigger strong showers in the Mauka and Makai areas of all islands. This rain has already caused a landslide on the Likelike Highway, so if you are heading over to town from Kaneohe or Kailua, DOT asks that you take an alternate route.
Could you tell them that that's not real?
That's not real.
Yes. So, but if you recognize the language and the accents here is the lake, L-A-K-E, and it's not like. So the caption is incorrect. The caption did not state the appropriate name of the freeway or the highway that was affected, and that's an egregious error. So without having that equal communication in their first language, English does not provide equivalent messaging. They will lose out on that information, and as we read it, we will not have clear communication of what emergency is happening. Now, our law, HRS .1397, American Sign Language, is recognized as a language. And now, let me show you what equivalent and equal communication will look like. Here's an example.
Now we ask you to focus on the interpreter. Once again, Hurricane Upana, not real, is currently 500 miles northeast of Honoka'a and is expected to trigger strong showers in the Mauka and Makai areas of all islands. This rain has already caused a landslide on the Likelike Highway, so if you are heading over to town from Kaneohe or Kailua, DOT asks to take an alternate route.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you listening to our testimony today. And please, please support this bill. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We have the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. Ms. Bartoldes.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Dean Bartoldes, Executive Director of the Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. We'd like to echo Disability Communication Access Board, what they had to say. In our testimony, we did also take the same recommendation to ensure that the picture-in-picture is included in there on the size, because that's very important. Oh, we're in strong support. Sorry, thank you. And we'd also respectfully request that you could indicate perhaps in your committee report as this bill moves forward, thinking positively, and that the act will take effect July 1st, 2027 to provide the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, who I've been talking with, significant time to prepare implementation. Thank you so much for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Bartoldes, and thank you for your recommendation of an amendment. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? I'm not sure if Mr. Leonard is online. No. We've received a total of 10 testimonies in support, 2 with comments, none in opposition. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in House Bill 1531? If not, questions, members? Yes, Representative Garcia.
Sure. Is Hawaii County on Zoom or present at all? No?
No.
Okay, I guess I have a question for Ms. Bartoldes. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here. Just curious, in my recollection of recent weather events and emergencies, hurricanes, tsunami warnings, pretty much all of the news conferences from the governor or the county mayors have had an ASL translator there. Has there been a time recently where that has not been the case?
There's not the problem that the translator is there, it's the positioning of the translator and the size of the translator. There are times that the translation goes up and then the text is underneath it, so you miss some of the sign language that's being displayed. Or it's too small of a box and their hands go outside the box or down lower for certain sign language that they use. So that was the concern.
Got it. And this bill would address those
Correct.
concerns. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Rep. Cochran?
Yeah, and for Ms. Bartoldes. So I was reading the testimony of Hawaii County Mayor, who states that it'd be difficult, I guess a lot of times the messaging needs to be right then and there, very quick. and urgent, and he thought that if every single message had to have American Sign Language, ASL, it I guess delay urgent information. Is that is there reason to believe that could occur or has occurred?
Can I have DCAP answer
sure.
that? For us, it's a form of communication should be for everybody. So it shouldn't be just the mass majority. So I would say it should be inclusive, but I would like Christine, they're the subject matter experts in that
Okay.
particular,
Yeah,
if that's okay?
fine. Yes, if
Appreciate
that's
it.
okay. Yep, can answer that.
I'm Brian McKigan on DCAP. That is a concern, but we do feel with proper planning that can be mitigated. We know there's another bill moving the session that would create a disability and access and functional needs coordinator position in HIEMA, and this presumably would be one of their first jobs would be to work with, obviously with HIEMA and then with the counties to make sure that they have access. We also know that having qualified interpreters in the other counties is a challenge. It's a challenge on Oahu as well, but again, having some proper planning. And I think if I remember correctly, with the tsunami warning, I think initially there was difficulty in getting an interpreter here because the traffic gridlock was so bad. So.
Well, glad you're addressing that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Other questions? Rep. Shimizu?
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry, gentlemen. Right, sorry. You mentioned the concern about having an adequate resource for interpreters. Do we have a supply problem, and if so, how would we address that for complying with this bill?
Yeah, so the supply has been dwindling. We were asked to do a report 2 years ago, which we submitted to the legislature. There's another bill moving as well that's trying to create a ASL interpreting program at UH Manoa, which we're hopeful will pass. That's obviously sort of long term. I think one of the advantages in the picture-in-picture window, as you're seeing, is that it opens up the use of technology potentially to be used. So if you were a county that maybe didn't feel like you had enough qualified interpreters on island, you could possibly have arrangements in place to tap into an interpreter elsewhere and use the technology to add them to the broadcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other questions, members? Representative Bellotti, did you have a question?
Nope.
Nope. Anything else? Okay, members, I think we're gonna take advantage of a quorum that we have here and go ahead and make a decision on this measure so that our testifiers who are here for this measure can go and our interpreter would be able to finish her work here as well. So if it's okay with everyone here, let's go ahead and make a decision on House Bill 1531, House Draft 1. My recommendation is to pass this out with amendments, and I would like to take the amendments recommended by the State Council on Developmental Disabilities regarding specifically the picture-in-picture window and the dimensions, and make sure that the interpreter can be seen and not blocked by anything else. So I will adopt their amendment that they have in their testimony, and in addition, include in the standing committee report that we are requesting an effective date of July 1, 2027. Those are my recommendations. Questions or concerns, members?
Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I really love this bill and I love the intention of it. I think the realities on Hawaii Island to effectuate this measure, like the testimony from our county and from our mayor is stated, there are times we do not have adequate reception for live broadcasts and resources of the ability of having enough interpreters to effectuate this. So I'm gonna vote with reservations today, but I would hope that the writers and HIEMA and others can work with Hawaii County to make sure that it can be effectuated for our county appropriately. It should be, but 2027 I think would not give the County of Hawaii enough time to be able to effectuate this, and I think it's great and important. But there are logistical issues with such a large island. We have the most emergencies of all time in the state. So how we work with Hawaii County to effectuate this is my only concern, Chair. Thank you.
Understood, understood. And we're very grateful to be able to have an ASL interpreter that's joining us remotely, and that works if you've got the internet operating, but that is a solution that we are benefiting from today. Other comments?
Chair, I
Rep. Shimizu and then Rep. Garcia.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with representative from the Big Island, the practical concerns. There's no question that this provision is needed for this community. So I will be voting with reservations also, but I hope that we can work it out.
Understood. Rep. Garcia?
Thank you, Chair. Like the previous speakers, I think the intent is phenomenal and I fully support the intent. I think it's important to have access for all people. But the testimony provided by the mayor of Hawaii County, I think does sufficient, it does warrant sufficient consideration in that oftentimes there could be a lack of translators available. And if a tsunami is happening, and someone's stuck in traffic, I think, we still have to get the message out immediately to the public. So in support, but noting with reservations. Thank you.
Understood. Other comments before we go and take a vote? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1531 HD1 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Bellotti.
Aye.
Representative Cochran.
Aye.
Representative Hashem.
Aye.
Representative Kahaloa.
With reservations.
Representative Sayama. Excused. Representative Takayama.
Aye.
Representative Garcia.
With reservations.
Representative Shimizu.
With reservations.
Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. We're gonna go now to the top of the agenda. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to our interpreter for being here.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, let's go to the top of the agenda. We're gonna go through all the measures on the agenda, and we'll do decision making on all these other measures at the end of our agenda. So first item on our agenda is House Bill 1880, House Draft 2, relating to pesticides. This measure, beginning in January 1st, 2027, prohibits the use or application of a pesticide containing 1,3-dichloropropene as an active ingredient, such as Telone. First up, we have testimony from the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Esther Reckert. I'm the Pesticides Branch Manager for Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity. We stand on our written comments on this bill, and I'm available for questions.
Could you do me a favor and highlight your comments, just the main topics?
So the main comment that we proposed is that pesticide products are regulated at both the federal level and the state level. Mainly because pesticides are inherently hazardous, right? The main intent of pesticides is to control pests, right? So at the federal level, EPA conducts their own risk assessments for all of the pesticide products, including those with the active ingredient 1,3-dichloropropene. And so there are already restrictions and reviews done at the federal level. At the state level, our pesticides branch is the regulatory agency to ensure that any mitigation measures that were put in place on the label are followed. In addition, because products with this active ingredient are restricted use, there are additional state regulations that apply as well, such as not being able to apply the product within a certain miles of schools. And they also have to conduct their own reporting that they need to submit to the department. And like I said, our state agency is the authority that would be regulating these products. And I will be available for questions.
Great, thank you very much. Next we have Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members, I'm Chris Caulfield from the Hawaii Public Health Institute. We are in support of this bill. When we know that a chemical causes harm, we cannot wait to take action. The science on this is clear. The active ingredient in Telone is classified by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the National Toxicology Program, and the International Agency for Research on Cancer as a probable or possible human carcinogen. It's a volatile fumigant that's designed to become a gas, meaning it doesn't stay where it's applied. It moves through the air, exposing farm workers, families, and children to a chemical that's been linked to respiratory illness, organ damage, and long-term cancer risk. In Hawaii, where schools, homes and agricultural fields exist side by side. That exposure is not abstract, it's real, it's preventable. And public health teaches us that prevention is essential because it is always the most vulnerable in our communities, the most rural communities in our keiki who bear the greatest brunt of environmental exposure. In places where telone has been banned, like in Europe, there are alternatives that have been put into place. Soil steaming, thermal sterilization, soil solarization is something that's used in Spain, California, and the Mediterranean. Integrated pest management, biofumigation, all of these are being used in place of telone and don't carry the same risk. But for us, this bill isn't just about science, it's about stewardship of our land, our water, our food supply, and the truly regenerative practices that nurture our future and the next generation's right to health. And we often talk about uplifting Aina-based practices in our state. To do that, we must make sure that we're fully embracing the philosophy of Malama Aina, not just using it as a political buzzword. So when a substance is known to cause cancer and respiratory harm, and safer alternatives exist, the only ethical choice is to put people before profit and take action to protect the lands that sustain us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next person said they wish to testify is Daniel Nellis, Dole Food. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and Vice Chair and Committee. I have submitted a written testimony. I won't read it word for word, but I just want to remind everybody that telone is a chemical that we use in the pineapple industry to control nematodes. If we don't control nematodes, we don't have a pineapple industry. We have over 200 people working on it, or not over, but approximately 200 people working in Wahiwa. That would be that many jobs with how many family members hurting if we cannot use this. There is no alternative on the market labeled for pineapple. We're always working with the industry to try to come up with something that we can use that may be less toxic. But again, we have to control the nematodes or we have no crop. I will comment that we depend on the EPA. And the EPA has said this is a usable product if used under these conditions. We use it under those conditions. Proper PPE, the barriers away from schools, as was mentioned by Esther. It's fumigated 20 inches deep. It does not gas out into the air and drift 7 miles. I know that's been said. And these things that get said about uses in other places do not really apply to what we're doing here. And if you switch to an alternative that is a liquid that you broadcast over the plants, you will have drift. They're not as effective, but they do run off into the environment. So this is the best environmentally controlled product that we can use. And until we have an alternative, this is what gives us an opportunity to grow pineapples successfully, economically in Hawaii. The fact that they're asking in the bill to start this on January 1st, 2027 is very short-sighted. When you, even if the EPA was to deregulate the chemical, they usually give several years to expand that deregulation. Our crop is a 3-year crop, 1-year fallow, then we start again. So we only apply this every 4 years. We do 400 acres a year, but only every 4 years do we apply it. We have lots of acres that are in fallow every year. And that's the #1 control for nematodes, is let them naturally die out by a fallow period. And then when you start, you have to take care of the rest of the nematodes so you get a good start. It's a root attacking organism. So I'll be available for any questions if you need.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony. Next, Clayton Kubo on Zoom. Please proceed, Mr. Kubo.
Clayton Kubo, Waimakaway. I support with some comments and maybe even some questions this might be. Okay, so in a sense, we're banning another product. How is that gonna help an impacted person like me that was impacted since the year of, I'm gonna say 1998? How is that gonna help me and my family and my neighbors if you guys gonna continue just banning another product? Because these guys just gonna continue to make up other products. That is my biggest question to you guys at the state legislature. How are you guys gonna act if I come back 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and saying the same thing? How is just banning this product gonna help me? Just like when chlorpyrifos was banned, right? Okay, mahalo nui. Aloha.
Thank you, Clayton. Any other testifiers on this measure? Yes, please, come on up, introduce yourself.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Annie Frederick on behalf of the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action and support. So just as a little context for our testimony and support, pursuant to the passage of Act 45 in 2018, when the RUP use data became available in 2019,
That's a restricted use pesticide, RUP.
Thank you. We have been doing a very close analysis of the data. We UEPA'd the data, we converted it all to pounds by TMK, and we GIS mapped the data and looked very closely across the state for where the hot spots were and what products were being used heavily. What we consistently found over several years, we did an in-depth look at 2019 through 2021 just because of the scale of the task. And we found that consistently fumigants are the most heavily used restricted use pesticide across the state. In particular, 1,3-D or Telone is the most heavily applied RUP statewide in the hundreds of thousands of pounds. We've seen that usage in our written testimony. We have a table included of the total usage across the state starting in 2019. We've seen it decline in recent years. Initially, we saw 2 users of this particular RUP. I believe there may be only 1 now. And so the majority of the use occurs between Waialua and Wahua. Upcountry use had been high in the past, but it appears to have declined or been eliminated altogether. As was mentioned before, fumigants in general, in particular 1,3-D, is even when used according to the label, are prone to drift. We don't have strong air monitoring, regulations in Hawaii, so most of the data that we have comes from California. And what we've seen with some of the drift monitoring in California is that even at over half a mile, up to 7 miles, they've witnessed, even when following the label, harmful levels of drift have occurred.
Could you summarize, please?
Yes. So we know some of the acute harms are nausea, vomiting, respiratory impacts, but the longer term chronic impacts are cancers, as have been mentioned before. And just in response to EPA regulation, we've repeatedly seen those regulations overturned when long-term chronic impacts have been studied and documented over these longer term longitudinal studies, which the EPA often doesn't account for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? If not, questions, members?
Question, Chair.
Representative Garcia first.
For Dole, please. Thanks for being here and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
You mentioned that the pesticides used specifically for pineapples in your industry, it's not sprayed over the crop, correct?
Correct.
Is it in the soil? It's used in the soil?
20 inches deep.
Okay, and how far are the nearest homes or residential areas to your farmland?
Not within a half mile.
Okay, so further than 1/2 mile. And then also you mentioned that you are currently using it within the FDA confines.
EPA.
Sorry, EPA. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Certainly. Rep. Shimizu?
Yes, sir.
For Dole, please, thank you for being here also.
Thank you.
I believe Europe banned it in 2009. And I'm sure they must have other alternatives, so you're stating there's no alternatives?
That's a good point, because an alternative in the United States of America has to be EPA registered for a crop. So what I'm saying is that there's not registered for pineapple a comparable fumigant for nematicide control. There are some that are not fumigants that you spray over the top, and of course they do have drift and runoff. And they're not as effective as when you fumigate into the root zone. This organism attacks the roots. So right from the beginning, you don't get good growth, you don't get good sized plants, you don't get beautiful fruit. Your yield is dramatically reduced, as much as 74% in the plant crop 60% in the subsequent crop. Economically, you can't grow pineapple with that kind of yield.
Chair, can I ask a follow-up?
One more.
The Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity, they mentioned in their testimony that if the bill were to move forward, they would request a 3-year window to start. Is that enough time in your estimation?
That's much better than 0 time, but even then, EPA would normally give close to 6 to 10 years for releasing chemicals, or taking them off a list is what I should say. We would like to continue to use Talone. If it is not allowed, we would like the time period to be longer, much longer. And 3 years is much better than 0 years, which is what we're looking at there.
Chair, if you would indulge me one more question.
Okay.
Brian, Hawaii Farmers Bureau, please. You know, I was always appreciate your testimony, and I was interested to see you support it. So, you know, because you represent farmers, your position is the farmers are okay with it?
Brian Miyamoto on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau, Representative Shimizu. I think you may mistaken me with Hunter Hevelin with the Farmers Union. The Farm Bureau respectfully opposes this measure. Yeah, our written testimony is in opposition.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Any other questions, Rep. Shimizu?
No, I'm fine.
Otherwise, we'll go to Vice Chair first and then over to Rep. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. For Dole. You mentioned that the fumigant is injected into the soil so that reduces the risk of drift compared to like topical sprayed types. So has there been any air monitoring done to monitor and see like what the actual levels of drift are?
We don't have air monitoring, but we do follow all of the regulations as put out by the EPA on how to apply. And it requires us to seal the soil with a tool called the cultipacker so that you have a smooth seal over it and you don't touch it for 7 days. So in other words, you don't break that seal. And the reason they set it at 7 days is because their science says that 7 days is enough to avoid any incidents of volatility going up and drifting.
Okay, so you do take precautions, but there's no data on what the drift levels might be because there isn't air monitoring.
That's correct. And again, it's speculative to use data from other states and other countries. And we'd be more than welcome to entertain any state agency that wants to do air monitoring in our farm. Or if we had to do it ourselves and we were taught the technology.
Thank you. And just a follow-up, because it's injected, is there any, like kind of going the other way out of the air and into the water, is there any information or data or environmental analysis regarding how the pesticide might leach into groundwater or aquifers?
That's all done by the EPA. So all of for a chemical to be approved to be used by the EPA, they do all those studies.
Do you know?
But I can tell you that we don't do a water test, but the Board of Water Supply does. And so the wells that are in that district, which 3 of them now belong to the state of Hawaii, that are on our farm, but we don't own the wells anymore. And they do water testing. And Board of Water Supply has a monitoring well on our farm, and they do water testing. And we haven't had any notification of affecting the water.
Okay, thank you.
Cochran.
I'm for Dole.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. So yeah, I was listening to your testimony and you were sort of explaining how it's injected in, I guess. It's not like sprayed,
Yes.
topically, but it's considered a fumigant, which means it produces fumes, right? So there is something that disperses into the air.
No, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Can anyways, it potentially.
the way it's set up, it is a liquid that is then pumped into a shank that is 20 inches deep and pushed with nitrogen, an inert gas. And so when the nitrogen pushes the liquid, it volatilizes it, and then the action within the soil is as a gas. But it's not coming to us as a gas that could,
Right, but-
like you don't close the valve and the gas is leaking in the air. That's not the situation.
Right, but I mean, the meaning of fumigate is
Yes,
evaporates and
it's exactly
absorbs.
right, and that action within the 20-inch deep area, the nitrogen gas pushes the liquid and atomizes it, which then volatilizes it to work as a gas.
Okay, alright, I just wanted clarification on
Sure.
the gas or liquid or whatever fumigant.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking, yeah, because it sounds like we're buying it in cylinders as a pressurized gas. But in fact, it's a liquid that gets pressurized with nitrogen.
Thank you, thank you. Follow-up question, Vice Chair?
So, this is a restricted use pesticide, and restricted use pesticides are that way because they pose a significant risk to human or environmental health. So my question is, knowing kind of that we have these bills come up every year, and this is a particular area of interest for some of us in the legislature, has Dole, have you folks been looking at, are there like resistant pineapple varieties to the nematodes, or are there, have you conducted pilot projects to kind of take the proactive approach to moving away from this?
That's a good question, and the proactive thing that we have done, but our industry and the United States of America does not seem very happy with the idea of genetically modified organisms. But the PBARC on the Big Island, the USDA PBARC, was doing for the benefit of Pineapple Growers Association, which is not just Dole, but the former Del Monte and the former Maui. They were trying to come up with a genetically modified pineapple that was naturally resistant to nematodes. They did not complete the project, basically because the companies that are part of Pineapple Growers Association said that we cannot sell a GMO pineapple. That could change someday in the future. Everybody's attitude changes over time, and certainly we would continue research in that area. Personally, I'm not afraid of GMO, and I think that would be awesome, because if you can have pest-resistant crops, then you don't need to use pesticides. But there has to be public acceptance for GMO, and for our product, the fresh pineapple, right now, there's not public acceptance for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, members? If not, thank you very much to the testifiers. And I appreciate that we were here today because this is part of the public education campaign to let people know what's really going on out there in the pineapple fields, because nobody can see it, right? Because it's far away. So I appreciate you taking the opportunity to come in and testify.
And I offer an invite anytime to any of the legislators who want to come out and see our farm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next measure, House Bill 1603, House Draft 1, relating to agricultural park leases. This measure repeals the requirement for land covered by an agricultural park lease with a remaining term of 15 years or less to be located in a county having a population of less than 500,000 in order for the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity to extend the lease. First up, we have Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Koff with the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity. We'll quickly summarize. Our understanding of this measure is to do exactly that, to repeal the provision of the 500,000 person population requirement. The department offers comments. We are placed in an unfortunate position on this bill. We see that there's a benefit to both sides. One, giving us the option and opportunity to extend the lease for an established farm for multiple reasons, financing, longevity, whatnot. That's definitely a reason for this bill. On the other hand, we do have an extensive list of people who are waiting to get on farmland with limited inventory. it's very difficult for us to take a position on that. We do apologize for that, but thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Amanda Shaw, Agriculture Stewardship Hawaii. On Zoom, please proceed.
Aloha, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Poipoy, and members of the committee. Amanda Shaw, Agriculture Stewardship Hawaii. Our organization's been providing conservation agriculture services for the past 25 years to Hawaii farmers. We're in strong support of this measure. This bill would really bring consistency to ag park leases throughout the state and throughout the islands. We really see it as a first step in other broader efforts to update and streamline and improve affordable access to agricultural land, water, and infrastructure. And we highly support the development of further ag parks so that many beginning farmers and farmers throughout the state can access those lands. This bill would really help us get clear and consistent lease policies. And it would enable folks that have been farming, that want to make meaningful investments in their soil health, for example, to apply to extend that lease. So the department still has discretion over whether those extensions could be granted. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. Chair, you have our testimony in strong support of this measure. This is fairness. The legislature, in their wisdom, passed a law several years ago that allowed this on every other county but on Oahu, Washington County, Honolulu. We're just asking to include our farmers that are on Department of Agriculture ag parks to be eligible for this lease extension. You heard the previous testifier talk about why it's important. You're not gonna get financing, you're gonna invest in your infrastructure. These farmers are farming. They're bona fide farmers that are producing the food, feed, fiber, fuel, floriculture that we want. Why are we suggesting to move them off and then bring somebody else on that maybe doesn't have that track record? We support new farmers. We hear the department talking about a list of people waiting to get on these ag parks. That's why we support finding additional farmland for the state to bring into the inventory. Funding an ag park that needs to be developed that the department has in Kunia. $50 million, we can put a bunch of new farmers on that ag park. Again, this is discretionary. This is a may, not a shall. We want to support new farmers, but we also want to encourage our current farmers who are farming or producing to continue to farm, to develop these succession plans, to keep growing what we need here in Hawaii. Again, this is a may. I was asked, the Farm Bureau was asked in the Ag Committee Chair, what the numbers look like, because we were asking actually for it to be increased from 25 acres up to 60 acres. Right now, the law says 25 acres. That is about 7% of the ag parks that we have right now. Just 7% or 25 acres are under. So we are asking the legislature to consider increasing it. So again, as a fairness issue, all farmers and ranchers that are on these ag parks have the opportunity to continue to farm. Aren't we trying to grow our industry? By passing this bill, it is a legislature's signal that they support our current farmers and we want to encourage them to continue to farm. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next, Haley McKinnon.
Aloha, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Poipoy, and members of the committee. My name is Haley Kaukea Eko McKinnon, and I co-own Akiki Acres, a diversified vegetable farm in Waimanalo. I stand in strong support of HB 1603. As the previous testifier has explained, the current population restriction creates an unnecessary barrier for farmers on Oahu seeking lease extensions. Agricultural lands are public resources, is a public resource, and policies governing them should be fair and consistent across the state. Removing this restriction allows farmers like us to invest in long-term stewardship of the Aina while being able to strengthen our local food system. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much for taking time away from your farm to be here. Next, Shannon Alivado, Waimanalo Agricultural Association. You wear a lot of hats.
No. Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Poipoy, and members. My name is Shannon Olivado. I'm here on behalf of Waimanalo Ag Association as an advisory volunteer board member. And we are here with Haley, with Brian, just to express our support. As you know, Waimanalo does include ag park leases. over 126 acres are in Waimanalo, and our lessees are very active in our community, not only doing plant nurseries, but also growing sod grass that all of us want in our yards, and also fruit, and like Haley mentioned, vegetables and fruits that we all consume. I just wanted to point out, Act 213 in 2023, the Senate committee report actually said something that really resonates with us on Oahu. It said, your committee further finds that when faced with the uncertainty of continued tenancy, lessees have little incentive to make major investments or improvements to their infrastructure or ensure the long-term maintenance of their facilities, which may deteriorate as a result. This is exactly what Waimanalo farmers and other Oahu ag lease holders would like. Some type of continuity with their farms, the ability to make investments, go to a bank, let them know that they want to continue farming and not be pulled out from under the rug if their lease were to end. So we just ask this committee to please consider extending this parity bill to Oahu leaseholders as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? If not, questions, members? Rep. Shimizu?
Department of Ag, please. Thanks for being here. I want to mahalo the farmers. That's really hard work, but my question to you would be, is there an established evaluation, analysis, or some kind of metrics that you do as far as evaluating the existing farmers compared to a new person coming up?
There's no process that the department takes that directly compares a potential new farmer to an existing established farmer. That would be very difficult to do because of track record, and so no, there is no direct comparison that we know of that weigh the two.
Can I ask this a follow? So let's say there's a existing person there and they're underperforming. Do you have some sort of review process to hold them accountable, or just keep tabs on productivity to make that decision to extend them?
Yes, absolutely. So if the farmer is in violation of their lease in any way, which does include the development of their farm, then our property managers send them notices of violation essentially, with requirements as to what they need to do to get into compliance of the lease. If one of the terms for extension is they must be in full compliance of their lease. If they are not, there is no extension.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, members? If not, thank you very much to the testifiers on this important bill. Let's move forward to the next measure. House Bill 1921, House Draft 1, relating to cesspools. This measure allows an existing cesspool that lawfully serves a single dwelling or dwelling unit in a priority level 3 area to continue serving that dwelling or dwelling unit and additional bedrooms constructed on the same parcel and within the existing dwelling or dwelling unit, subject to certain conditions. It authorizes the Department of Health to adopt rules and authorizes the restriction of additional bedrooms where evidence demonstrates that continued cesspool use impacts water quality or human health. First up, we have University of Hawaii in support. Next, we have Department of Health with comments on Zoom.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. John Nagasso, Department of Health Wastewater Branch. Department stands on its written testimony providing comments. The department acknowledges the intent of this measure. Our comment is in regard to the Environmental Protection Agency's regulation regarding the definition of large capacity cesspools, and our proposed amendment is intended to mitigate any unintentional violation of the EPA's large capacity cesspool regulations. Available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Ted Bolin, Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Tarnas, members of the committee. Ted Bolin on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition. I filed testimony late after reading the testimony of the University of Hawaii. Thank you for seeing it. University of Hawaii, Sea Grant College and Water Resources Research Center are the ones who worked with the Department of Health on the prioritization tool. And they've testified that there is a problem with the bill as written because there would be confusion over what is priority 3. And there needs to be some clarification because priority 3 actually has 3 spatial resolutions. You've got census tract, block groups, and blocks. And it makes a big difference as to how many cesspools are in priority 3. So I would suggest for the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition an amendment on page 4, line 21, after tool. I would suggest the committee add using block spatial resolution rather than default census tract resolution. As I said, this makes a big difference in how many cesspools are covered under priority 3, and it eliminates the confusion that's very important for the bill. So I ask that you make that change. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much for providing that amendment. The university provided guidance but no amendment, so thank you for doing that work for us. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, House Bill 1921? If not, questions, members?
Chair?
Rep. Shimizu.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name and your.
Ted Bolin.
Ted. And who are you with, Ted? I'm so sorry.
Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a question for Mr. Bolin?
No, I just
Okay.
needed to clarify.
Just wondering.
Just want to know who he is. Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much to the testifiers. Let's move on to the next measure. House Bill 1979, House Draft 2, relating to environmental review. This measure shortens the period during which certain judicial proceedings involving environmental assessments and environmental impact statements on actions that propose the use of land for or construction of affordable housing or clean energy projects must be initiated. Specifies that appeals from environmental courts that involve actions that propose the use of land for or construction of affordable housing or clean energy projects meet one of the grounds for transfer to the Supreme Court and prohibits any court from awarding attorneys' fees in these judicial proceedings. First up, we have Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Mr. Tom Eisen. Tell us about your comments.
Yes, we have comments. I'll summarize briefly that Office of Planning and Sustainable Development supports the governor's priority goal of increasing affordable housing for local residents, shortening the window for filing a judicial challenge to an agency determination will reduce uncertainty and risk for the development of affordable housing. We note the bill is narrowly constructed to align with the important goals of providing affordable housing and clean energy.
Thank you very much.
Available for questions.
Thank you very much. Office of Hawaiian Affairs on Zoom, Lealoha Makuanani.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Lealoha Makuanani on behalf of Office of Hawaiian Affairs. For the most part, we'll stand on our written comments, but I want to highlight one that we acknowledge that the intent is to streamline important statewide initiatives for affordable housing and clean energy. But we'll highlight our main concern with the measure is the restriction on awarding attorney fees, which we believe will create a very strong disincentive for plaintiffs with limited financial resources to pursue legitimate claims, and could potentially open the door for bad actors to proceed without meaningful oversight. I will add, beyond what's in our testimony, that there are separate provisions in the HRS that specify that attorney fees are not awarded when developers are acting in good faith, but they're only awarded when the developer has moved forward, essentially knowing that they're violating laws. So removing this fee shifting provision for these type of projects, which could cover a very broad scope, could potentially incentivize bad actors and be overly punitive for community members who are often our Native Hawaiian beneficiaries acting as private attorney generals to enforce their constitutional rights. So for those reasons, we strongly recommend removing that provision, along with the other recommendations in our testimony. I will be available for questions. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, Jasmine Steiner on Zoom, not present. Next, Truth for the People, Navai Ho'ola Nui La'au Lapa'au Foundation on Zoom. Next, McKinley Eads, Avalon Development Company on Zoom. Please proceed. McKinley Eads with Avalon Development Company on Zoom. Please proceed. No response. Okay. We don't hear you. We can't hear you. Nope.
Audio issues, so rejoin that.
Okay. We're going to go on to the next testifier and then come back if we have time. Bianca Isaki on Zoom.
Aloha Chair and Representatives. I'm against these amendments. It would shorten time, and I'm especially concerned with a 30-day limit when there's no environmental review, because very often there's no notice. I mean, I can compare it with like agency appeals, which also have a 30-day deadline. And I'm an attorney. I have a lot of community clients. And so what happens with 30 days from an approval when there's no review at all, the director or an agency, they'll approve a project, send a notice to the developer, and then nobody even knows it happened. And the only way to find out it happens very often is to like do a public records request, which can take 2 weeks. Well, their agency's given 2 weeks to respond, and then they can extend for another 2 weeks. And most of the time, you might not even know there's an application. So that 30-day limit when there's no review and subsection A, that is really a big problem. It's going to add barriers to environmental review, which is supposed to happen at the earliest practicable time. And I'd also echo OHA's rationale around attorney's fees, because there's just no reason to remove that, because you only get that when you successfully correct a failure to conduct environmental review, which shows that there was some merit to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's try again for a couple that weren't here. Jasmine Steiner on Zoom? No. Kanoe Ulu Vehi Nuhea Case on Zoom? No. And McKinley Eads on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. McKinley Eads on behalf of Avalon Development. Much of the testimony in opposition suggests that this bill weakens environmental protections or denies access to justice. Respectfully, that is not accurate, and it is important to focus on what the bill actually does. Chapter 343 is already one of the strongest environmental review statutes in the country. Developers routinely spend tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars preparing environmental assessments and environmental impact statements. Those documents are reviewed over many weeks by professional staff at the state and county level. Agencies make formal determinations under law subject to public notice and comment period. The public is still fully involved through the environmental review process through notices, written comments, and agency consideration before any determination is made. That process is not perfunctory. It is not controlled by developers. This bill does not shield projects from accountability. Judicial review remains available, and courts retain full authority to enforce compliance and halt unlawful action. What this bill addresses is the use of litigation timing itself as a means of stopping projects rather than resolving legitimate environmental disputes. As the law stands, a single motivated individual, without ever prevailing on the merits, can delay or derail a project that would provide housing or energy to hundreds of families. Affordable housing and clean energy projects are uniquely vulnerable because they depend on time-sensitive financing, tax credits, and coordinated approvals. Delay alone can make a fully lawful project financially infeasible. Opposition testimony often frames attorneys' fees as necessary for access to justice, but there is no constitutional right to have litigation subsidized. People may still bring claims, and they should. They may still challenge agency action, and they may still prevail on the merits. What this bill removes is a financial incentive structure that can encourage litigation aimed at stopping projects altogether, rather than correcting genuine environmental deficiencies through injunctive or declaratory relief. In a system where delay itself can kill a project, fee shifting magnifies that leverage, regardless of the underlying merits. This bill represents a careful and targeted reform. It preserves strong environmental protections while restoring balance and certainty to a system that is currently vulnerable to misuse. If Hawaii is serious about delivering affordable housing and clean energy while still protecting our environment, HB 1979 HC2 is a reasonable and necessary step. We respectfully urge your support. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1979, House Draft 2? If not, questions, members? If not, thank you to all the testifiers. We're going to move on to the next measure. House Bill 1948, House Draft 1, relating to single-use plastics. This measure prohibits lodging establishments from providing personal care products in small plastic containers within sleeping room accommodations, any space within sleeping room accommodations, or bathrooms used by the public or guests. And it establishes civil penalties. First up, we have the Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Charlie Taylor on behalf of DLNR's Division of Aquatic Resources. We stand on our written testimony providing comments, and just to summarize those comments, we normally would, for just about any bill that reduces plastic pollution or plastics entering our state waters, we're generally supportive of that. The only reason we're not giving a technical support is because we recognize this is amending 342, it's a Department of Health statute, which is out of our department's jurisdiction, but still just noting that microplastics are a huge concern to our department and our division because, and we mentioned it in our testimony about ingestion and entanglement for wildlife, smothering of wildlife, transportation of invasive species. We neglected to mention microplastics as well, which is a huge concern. Which we're finding in our sand and our coastal areas. So again, we're generally in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, the Department of Health. Wasn't that nice? DLNR deferred to you. Didn't want to mess with your statutes.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kellyanne Lee here on behalf of Hawaii Department of Health Solid and Hazardous Waste Branch. So we stand on our written testimony providing comments, but our main comment is that we believe that a better fit for this language and this bill would be under Hawaii Revised Statutes 486K hotels, because that provides other requirements that hotels have to comply with when running their businesses. And we think that would be a better fit than what's currently proposed, our solid waste pollution statute. But if the Hawaii Department of Health Solid and Hazardous Waste Branch were tasked with implementing this measure, we would respectfully request an additional position to do the enforcement and inspections, and this measure is currently written. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Angela Young, Hawaii Youth Climate Coalition on Zoom. Not present. Next, we have Bella Joaquim on Zoom.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and other committee members. My name is Bella Jawakam, and I am a senior at Hawaii Pacific University. I am testifying in support and would like to reiterate my written testimony on this bill. In Hawaii, pollution is a serious issue as it ends up in most of our oceans and shorelines. While toiletry bottles and containers may seem minor by themselves, collectively, they create a significant amount of plastic waste that is only used once, ending in a landfill. As we are part of an island community, millions of tourists visit every year, staying in these lodging facilities and using these supplies. By reducing plastic from the tourism industry, we will make meaningful difference in our carbon footprint. I've also learned in class this year that the idea that humans have a moral responsibility to reduce environmental harm where there are reasonable alternatives. In this case, we do have alternatives like refillable dispensers in the case of like shampoo and conditioners that are now widely being provided in many places. This bill reflects the values of many people in Hawaii and also helps us respect the land and ocean. That is our responsibility, especially if we want this place to be here for future generations. We know that there is some level of pollution that is inevitable, but we still have an obligation to prevent and reduce plastic whenever that is possible. Measures like 1948 are small but important steps towards a sustainable practice. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify today, and I respectfully urge the committee to support this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Joachim. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1948? Mr. Boland.
Thank you, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Poi Poi, members of the committee. Ted Boland for the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition and the Climate Protectors Hawaii. Won't be at this long. It's we've all seen little bottles that you get in hotels, and individually that's not very much, but collectively it's a lot of plastic. Plastic's a problem. Microplastics are a problem, as previous speakers have indicated. It would be really good to get people to get lodging establishments to use bulk containers instead of all these little bottles, and they can actually save money doing that. So it makes sense for the hotel industry, it makes sense for us as citizens and for the environment. So I urge you to pass this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? If not, questions, members? If not, thank you very much to the testifiers. Let's move on to the next measure. House Bill 1873, House Draft 1, relating to the Board of Regents of the University of Hawaii. This measure requires members of the Board of Regents of the University of Hawaii to attend a governance training within 12 months of appointment and every 2 years thereafter. It exempts strategic planning retreats of the Board of Regents of the University of Hawaii from open meeting requirements if certain conditions are met. It requires the Candidate Advisory Council to ensure that all candidates presented to the governor for nomination have certain subject matter experience and are not registered lobbyists who have lobbied on matters pertaining to the University of Hawaii. It exempts the financial disclosures of the Board of Regents as mandated by the State Ethics Code from being made public. It requires the Board of Regents of the University of Hawaii, in collaboration with the Candidate Advisory Council, to submit annual reports to the legislature. First up, we have the Board of Regents on Zoom, Mr. Miyahira.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I stand on the submitted testimony to highlight it. We support the professional development of the regents once selected to the board, and also the ability to plan strategically on behalf of the university. We also support the filing of financial disclosures. However, public disclosure has tended to discourage otherwise highly experienced and qualified candidates in the past. And so if we could eliminate the public disclosure, that would help us broaden the pool of possible candidates to be considered to serve as the regent of the university. The board already has existing bylaws that govern conflicts of interest, and in my experience, we have successfully utilized that practice in the past. I stand available for any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miyahira. Next, we've received written testimony from the Office of Information Practices. Next, we have Mr. Harris, Hawaii State Ethics Commission.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Hawaii State Ethics Commission is respectfully in opposition specifically to the provision that would hide the financial information transmitted by the Board of Regents. The written testimony, I think, is in there. I won't try to repeat it, except to just briefly note the fact that the Board of Regents oversees an institution with billions of dollars of funds, extensive procurement authority, and a very pivotal role in Hawaii's economy. And for that reason, it is why the Board of Regents has been treated in such a way where the financial information has been made public. I will note that there is an article just today from the ProPublica talking about, on a federal level, a web of connections between senior governmental officials and the institutions that they regulate, and really trying to highlight a loud alarm about the concern about ethics on that level. I don't want to see Hawaii moving in that direction. If anything, I'm hoping we're moving in the other direction of ensuring public confidence in the decision-making that's being made by our trusted public officials. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next, Public First Law Center, Ben Krebs on Zoom.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and members of the committee. My name is Ben Krebs. I'm a staff attorney with the Public First Law Center. Our organization is dedicated to promoting openness in Hawaii government. And we're respectfully opposing this bill. It's a bad bill for government accountability and transparency for at least two reasons. So first, it creates a broad and unnecessary open meetings exemption exclusively for the Board of Regents. And we explain in our written testimony why that exemption is not necessary. And we would also respectfully refer the committee to the written testimony of the Office of Information Practices. They are the governmental expert on this, and they've also put in their written testimony that this is not a good idea and it should come out of the bill if the bill moves forward. And second, as just noted by the previous testifier, this proposal would hide currently public financial disclosures for members of one of the most powerful government boards in the state. The regents have suggested in their testimony that the public disclosure requirements limit the regent applicant pool, but there's zero evidence to support that assertion. So you can find past lists of applicants online, and you can easily see that the pool of applicants is wide and deep, and it has been for many years, notwithstanding the public disclosure requirement. And moreover, just look at the current regents. We've got prominent lawyers, we've got high-profile finance executives, and even a former governor. So there's just no need for secret disclosures, and openness serves a critical guardrail against the conflicts of interest. So in the end, this bill is a solution without a problem, and we respectfully ask that this committee defer it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1873? If not, questions, members? Rep. Shimizu?
UH Board of Regents.
Mr. Miyahira, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, Mr. Shimizu.
I was just wondering, there's a requirement for training.
You mean professional development? Attending seminars and workshops, so forth.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that entailed. If you could quantify that, please.
Yeah, this basically entails involving regents in training in terms of how to be a good trustee of the university itself, serving on boards of governors, boards of trustees, boards of regents, looking at the issues that the university or higher education faces, what the duties and responsibilities of the regents are, and basically, how to perform our duties to the highest level possible.
Follow up, Chair.
Yes.
So is that something that's in place now, and how often is that done?
It's not required, however, we strongly encourage all of our regents to participate in training and workshops annually or biannually. As an example, I attended the Association of Governing Boards last March, and I will be attending the same association this coming March as we meet in Denver to go over some of the issues of higher ed, including things like name, image, likeness, in terms of the issues facing higher education as far as involvement with the federal government and other kinds of issues.
So it sounds like there's nothing in place right now, and it's more of a subjective kind of thing. Is that how it is?
There's no requirement. However, we strongly urge all of our regents, and I believe with the exception of just one regent who prefers not to travel because of personal health reasons, all of our other regents have attended these workshops and seminars in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
thank you, certainly. Rep. Cochran?
For Board of Regents, aloha. So your strategic planning retreats, how many do you have, or have you currently participate in these, right?
We haven't had one since I've been appointed, which has only been 2 years. So I'm looking forward to hopefully participating one in the near future.
And follow-up, Chair. And this is strategic planning. So at these retreats, is the intention to plan and not so much make decisions and like do votes on particular items?
That's correct. In fact, I believe that the House Draft 1 does specifically mention no business decisions and no decisions on the strategic plan itself during a retreat. And I think the intent is for these kinds of conversations and the result of the planning to be made publicly available at a subsequent meeting of the board.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Question from Mr. Harris? The testimony from the Board of Regents makes it very clear that the public disclosure of financial information does in fact give pause and discourages otherwise highly experienced and qualified candidates of good character from ultimately applying to be a regent. Is there a way that you can assure that there's no potential conflicts, or by having the financial disclosure be made to you and to your staff, you could review it, but it not be made public? That's certainly done in other other processes, and I think if you can review it and your staff can review it, you can make sure that there's not a problem, but it doesn't have to be disclosed to the public. What could be wrong with that?
Chair, in 2014, this legislature made the decision to identify certain boards and commissions that were considered high profile, essentially boards with high authority.
Answer the question. Don't go back to what the legislature did years ago.
Well, so the Board of Regents was moved out of the confidential financial disclosure, that regime that you're specifically referencing, and put into a public disclosure regime for some extensive policy reasons, which I won't repeat just for the sake of brevity. One of the concerns with keeping it confidential from a public perspective, from a public integrity or public confidence in it, they don't see it. If they file a complaint with us, they won't get an answer because it's confidential information. So they will never know if there was an actual issue behind the scenes or not, and that is part of the reason why you're losing confidence. Second, I would identify again with a institution with significant activity, the ability for an agency with a staff of 12 to be able to review each action and determine if there's a conflict of interest is exceedingly challenging. One property transaction may involve dozens of entities with hundreds of individuals involved. To be able to identify where those financial conflicts of interest are with any level of specificity would require a level of staffing and attention and focus that just isn't currently available.
So that means you're depending on the public to do your job?
Right now, what we are doing is principally responding to complaints. So after the financial conflict of interest is identified and has already occurred, we can go back after the fact and go after them. Trying to identify things in a proactive manner. Typically, we found stakeholders who are involved in the process, who are engaged and already know who the players are usually the ones in the best situation to be able to identify where those conflicts are versus trying to catch it after the fact.
It concerns me that you're crowdsourcing a job that really is your job. And I appreciate that the legislature in the past decided to move the Board of Regents out of the group that could provide their financial disclosure and keep it confidential. This measure clearly is contemplating putting the Board of Regents back into that for good policy reasons. And so I'm just trying to understand how you can do your job by reviewing this financial disclosure information confidentially and without having to make it public.
Sure. So under the Constitution, specifically, public disclosures are required. And they specifically name in the Constitution specific jobs, including yours, as ones that are publicly disclosed. And it gives the legislature the authority to identify who else is.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't necessarily say it's our job. It is a policy decision, right? With the legislature to decide which one's gonna be public or public confidence purposes. For us to be able to review every decision made by the Board of Regents would require an increase in staffing, and that would be part of the request to do this in a way that you would be able to have assurances to the public that every decision is being reviewed for conflict of interest purposes.
Okay, well that's legitimate, that if you have to do this work, you may not be able to do it with your existing staff. So if this committee and if the House decides to move this measure forward, I would urge you in future hearings to indicate in your testimony what you would need in order to implement this. Because what the legislature did in the past, we can undo, and we can, we have the constitutional authority to allow the Board of Regents to keep their financial disclosures confidential by changing the statute.
You're absolutely right, Chair. It is certainly your decision. I would note that all the current board of regents, for the ones saying that qualified candidates aren't applying, did apply, are currently serving under the current regime.
I understand. But there's a lot of people who don't run for office because they don't want to have to disclose all their financial information. I suspect that there are lots of people who would be interested to serve on the board of regents, but don't do it because they don't want to disclose all their financial information. And that's confirmed by the testimony from Mr. Miyahira.
Sure. Again, just for the sake of the public watching, not all financial information is revealed. There is an extensive attempt to try to hide, for example, personal identification, personal addresses, and that there is a range of salary or range of income. So the idea is people don't have to give specifics, it's just basically indicating above a certain amount is what is disclosed to the public as a means in part to try to offset some of that concern about that information being public. On a national level though, a lot of the federal crimes that we've seen lately have flowed out of spouses, affiliated people having financial connections and getting financial benefits from transactions going on. And that's why some of this does seem invasive, but it's also directly related to where we see corruption issues.
Yeah, so I think if we can trust that you can do the job, then I just don't understand why we have to make everything public. Because I think it is dissuading people from applying to be on the board of regents, for example. So if this committee and if the House decides to move this measure forward, I would urge you in future testimony to say what you would need on staff in order to be able to implement it. Because we trust you.
Okay.
And your staff to do a good job, even if the public doesn't get all the details.
Sure.
So, yes, Rep. Shimizu.
Following up the question that the chair was posing, I heard you say that you didn't have the staff or inability to track every decision by the Board of Regents. But my understanding from the chair's question was just the initial financial standing that he was saying we want to, or this bill wants to not be made public, but just to ethics. So is it where you're talking about just the initial financial disclosure, or is it your understanding that you have to track every decision by the Board of Regents? Because that's what I heard you say, which is totally different. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, understood, and thank you for the opportunity to clarify. A conflict of interest arises when someone has a financial interest in one of the businesses or entities coming before them for decision making. Currently, if that information of those financial connections is public, there is some, sunshine is the great disinfectant. To the extent that it's well known in public, there's some disincentive from making a decision that might benefit the individual at hand, right? It's known. In addition, anyone who's involved in that process has the opportunity to say ahead of time, hey, wait, there might be a conflict of interest here. If the only person who knows that there is a financial interest or involvement is the Ethics Commission, then if you want to proactively stop conflicts of interest, you would actually have to review those decisions and actively be looking for those financial interests. And so, the question that was asked is essentially, why aren't you doing more of this? Again, a typical business property transaction, you'd actually have to look at each LLC, for the members at LLC, who might be the parent company. These things are quite complex, and it would require a great deal of time, energy, and effort to try to keep track of that and then be able to say that in a public way.
I get a better understanding. Thank you for explaining. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Mr. Harris. Mr. Miyahira, are you still there?
Yes, I am still here.
Thank you. I appreciate your patience to stick around for questions. Could you help us understand the conflict of interest policies within the Board of Regents? So how would what the ethics, the director of the Ethics Commission, he posed, for example, like a land transaction that the university was doing, and how does your conflict of interest rules make sure that individual regents or their spouses or family members don't benefit from those sort of transactions? Because you mentioned you had a strong conflict of interest policy that's worked well. Could you help us understand how that works?
Sure, it's part of our bylaws, but it's highly dependent upon a person's integrity and honesty. And I've seen over the last 2 years, examples of regents basically recusing themselves from discussions and voting on specific measures, even for myself for that matter. A matter came up which involved possible involvement of a nonprofit on whose board I serve. And so I publicly announced my possible conflict of interest and removed myself from the conversation as well as any decision making on that particular item. But again, it rests primarily on the honesty and integrity of each regent.
Okay, thank you for helping us understand how that works with the Board of Regents. Any other questions, members? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Miyahara. Thank you very much, Mr. Harris, and to all the testifiers on this measure. Let's go on to the next measure. House Bill 1559, House Draft 1, relating to education. This measure prohibits a student from using a telecommunication device on school grounds during the instructional day, with certain exceptions. It requires a confiscated telecommunication device to be released only to the student's legal parent or guardian, who then has 3 months to retrieve the device or subject the device to forfeiture. First up, we have the Department of Education.
Aloha Chair Tarnas and Vice Chair Poi Poi and members of the committee. I'm Terry Ushijima, Assistant Superintendent testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony providing comments, and I want to just point out a few things. The Board of Education has approved a cell phone policy on February 12, 2026, and we believe that this addresses the intent of this measure. So respectfully, we believe that a statutory mandate is not needed at this time. We also want to mention that the board policy does, for the high school, provide some flexibility at that level in terms of how we define instructional time. So it's really to allow students to engage more fully without distraction. So during class time, they would not be using their phones, but during breaks and recess, the schools would have the ability to decide whether or not it's appropriate for their students to use it. I've talked to student council students, and many of them, they have jobs or sometimes they have to pick up siblings. And so that provides an opportunity for them to do a quick check before the end of the school day. And just recently, I was at one of our high schools where we were doing a taste test to add menu items to our centralized kitchen work. And the way we were able to get feedback from the students was after they tasted, they used their phones to do the QR code, and they could at that moment just input their feedback. And talking to the high school principals, overall, they do not see having access during lunch a problem. In fact, to have to enforce no cell phones during lunch could create other problems because they would spend all their time probably having to monitor and address that. So thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mia Nishiguchi on Zoom, not present. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1559? If not, questions, members? Rep. Shimizu?
I just wanted to clarify one thing. So this internal policy hasn't been started yet, then, yeah?
It's going to be effect from this coming school year. So once a board policy is passed, we have a time frame to come up with the guidance. So our office has started that process.
So it's gonna start in
School
August?
year, yes, August.
All right, thank you.
Thank
I just want to clarify that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you share that document? Do you have a document that is public that you could share with us?
For the Board of Education,
That sets this policy that you said that the board has created?
we do have the policy. It is
Is it posted on your website?
It's posted on the Board of Education website. It's the policy is from the February 11,
12.
12
Wait to your testimony.
Yes, that's when it was approved, and I believe that's when we had our Board of Education date and
So
all the
if the
agenda
public-
items are.
If the public and the members here wanted to see that, we could go to the Board of Education's website and find February 12th and look at the document?
Yes, I will confirm that, but yes, it's under the Student Achievement Committee.
Okay. And the next steps in that process?
It is posted.
Okay, the next steps in that process is that, now the board has approved it, so now you have to do the guidance.
Yes,
Who's doing that?
our Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design.
Okay, and is that then gonna be made public at some point? If maybe you could help, talk us through the process. You or your compatriot.
So Charles Souza, from the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design. So the policy is up on the board website. There is also another board policy that says when there is a board policy that the department has 90 days to create this implementation plan. So that implementation plan will be presented to the board and then implemented for the 26-27 school year.
So you expect that in May or around then, you'll present your implementation plan to the board?
We will have it available. So the Board of Education sets the agenda.
Sure.
But that's our timeline in terms of having it ready and sharing it with our schools, because schools in turn then have to share it with their parents.
Sure.
And currently many schools already have an existing cell phone policy. It's just that what this does for, by having a board policy, it brings consistency amongst the schools.
That's right, I understand.
Yes.
So you're gonna have your implementation plan, and where will that be posted so that people will know to look for it in, April or May?
Standards of practice.
Yes, so we are, we're creating it so that we follow what we call standards of practice.
Yes.
So that's the format that we're using, and we will have it available. Usually it's not usually public website, but
At
we
what
could
point-
definitely share it with.
But at what point would it be made public? Your implementation plan?
It would be made public because the schools would have to implement it in the upcoming school year.
Okay, but when would the public be able to read your implementation plan? Is it when the Board of Education is considering it? Is it part of their agenda? Or how can interested members of the public or the legislature see the implementation plan?
We can probably work with our comms office to post it on our website. We could request that they do that. Normally, when we have standards of practice, it's giving the school specific guidance in terms of how to implement the policy.
Okay. I'm thinking out loud here, but this is a measure that there's a lot of interest in the legislature to do something about it.
Yes.
And we hear that you're doing something and we're trying to understand what it is. And so that's why I'm asking the questions about when are your plans gonna be made public so we can understand it.
So the policy actually says what we have to do.
Yes, so I understand that's available now.
Yes, and that is what the schools will be doing.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate that. I think for the legislature, it would be important for us to learn more about what the board has just adopted, just 2 weeks ago.
And it was a long process. We started doing public engagement and surveys,
Yep.
and we had multiple presentations at the board. So it did take.
Sure, it takes some time, but it includes a description not only of what the policy is, but also enforcement. Does it include enforcement as well?
Yes, so that's partly of what the guidance will include. And currently, in terms of enforcement, the bill has some very specific steps.
Yes.
Which is one of the things I think we put in the comments, that for the schools, they follow disciplinary guidance, Chapter 19. So the guidance would align the consequences with what should occur, because in the school setting, usually, unless it's a very severe offense, it's gradual. And so, you know, the first time it might be, it may be a warning. Then the second time it might be, okay, well, they have to hold it till the end of the school day. Perhaps, and I'm not saying this is a guidance, I'm just giving you an example. And even in terms of how cell phones might be stored, that's another area that we would have to provide guidance. And so those are the things that we're currently working on.
Okay, all right, well, I appreciate the education about what you're doing. But I do think if you assert that this bill is not necessary, it would behoove you to educate us even more about what you're currently doing, what the Board of Education's policy is, your timeline for your implementation plan, so that the legislature could have confidence that what you're doing is going to take care of their concerns.
And we appreciate the legislature's interest in this area, because we also agree that we want students to be focused on instruction.
So if this committee and the House decides to move this bill forward in some form or another, I'd say in future hearings on this, I think the more you can explain what you're doing and provide it to the public, I think that would help us feel more confident that we don't have, if you're saying we don't need the bill, we need to be convinced that what you're doing is going to be sufficient. So I would welcome future at future hearings that you provide more information about that.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next measure. We already heard House Bill 1531 and made decisions on that. We're going to move now to House Bill 1721, House Draft 1 relating to housing. This measure clarifies insurance, indemnification, and certain certificate of occupancy requirements for purposes of expedited permits. And I want to let everyone know, remind people, we're going to be going through all the bills on our hearing first, and then we'll do decisions at the end. So just so you know. Okay, House Bill 1721. On this measure, first up we have Kika Bukowski, who's been very patiently waiting.
Thanks, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kika Bukowski on behalf of the Plumbers and Fitters, Local 675. We submitted testimony in opposition as written. However, we did submit some proposed amendments that, if adopted by your committee, we would be open to supporting the underlying intent of the measure. We support trying to make things a little quicker, expedited, a little more efficient. However, not at the expense of health, safety, and resiliency. The section in the bill that we're most concerned about is on page 4, lines 1 and 2, which basically eliminates the need for inspections of actual work performed to ensure that the work actually performed is done according to design in order to get a certificate of occupancy. And our amendments do not impact the underlying intent of the expedited permit. It still leaves the final decision to the design professional, but it requires state or county inspectors to actually inspect the work that's being done. My understanding, by definition, design professionals observe the work, but they do not inspect. There's a big difference between observing and actually inspecting the actual work being done, completed, to ensure that the house or the dwelling or the structure is actually safe to occupy. So we respectfully request that you consider our amendments.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Ted Kafalas, Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. Not present. Next, Ikaika Kincaid, American Council of Engineering Companies of Hawaii.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. We submitted testimony in support of this bill. We represent the engineers of Hawaii, 70 companies total, large firms with small mom and pop firms. The intent of this is to, streamline the permit application and the process, where the engineers are self-certifying that the design and everything is done accordingly. But to do that, we need to make sure that our insurance or our companies can be insured. So that's why the recommendation to change some of the language to make sure that the engineer firms can get insured by these insurance companies so that we can do the work. So without them, we wouldn't be able to do the work, so.
Makes sense. Thank you very much. Next, Janice Marsters, Akawa Consulting on Zoom.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I own a small business engineering and environmental consulting business on Maui and support this measure with the revisions requested by ACECH. And those and that revision is actually mirrored also, I noted, in the AIA testimony. With respect to the indemnification language. As a small business being insurable with our professional liability insurance, super important, the implications to our business just too great. And I'll just note that the majority of engineering firms in Hawaii are local small businesses, and this measure would support their participation in this important program that was established by the legislature last year. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1721? If not, questions, members? If not, thank you very much to the testifiers. Let's move on to the next measure. House Bill 1782 relating to artificial intelligence for protection of minors. This measure establishes safeguards, protections, oversight, and penalties for interactions between minors and artificial intelligence companion systems or conversational artificial intelligence services. First up, Department of Education.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Terry Ushijima again testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. We stand on our written testimony in support of HB 1782 HD2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Office of Wellness and Resilience.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Trina Orimoto, and on behalf of the Office of Wellness and Resilience, we stand on our testimony in support of this measure as it aligns with our kuleana to make Hawaii a trauma-informed state. The bill establishes critical consumer protections for conversational AI, particularly for children and adolescents who are at a uniquely sensitive stage of development when their prefrontal cortex is still developing and they don't quite have the impulse control that adults do. So we're grateful that you heard this measure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, the Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ashley Tanaka on behalf of the Department of Attorney General. We thank this committee for hearing this bill, as we do strongly support the intent of this bill. We did provide comments addressing some potential constitutional concerns we saw with the bill as currently written, with some suggested amendments. We did also refer to some phrases that currently aren't defined in the bill, with also suggested definitions for those phrases. Lastly, we did address regarding enforcement of this bill. We do believe that additional resources may be necessary to enforce. If this bill is passed, we do intend on initiating enforcement and collecting data on what sort of human resources needs and costs are associated with such enforcement. And if we do determine based on the data we collect that additional resources are necessary to further enforce this bill, we will have any requests for additional resources supported with data that we collect. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your hard work on your testimony. That helps a lot. Yeah. Next, the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, Office of Consumer Protection.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Raji Tolentino with the Office of Consumer Protection. The Office of Consumer Protection supports this bill and the protection it provides for minors who use artificial intelligence companion system. Our office enforces Hawaii's security breach of personal information law, so we are very mindful of how consumer data is collected and used. We appreciate the data minimization provisions in this bill, which limits the collection, use, and retention of a minor's personal data to what is reasonably necessary to operate the AI system and ensure safety and security. As my colleague at the Office of the Attorney General's office, we are working with them and trying to identify the resources necessary to ensure that law can be implemented effectively. And later you will hear from two young men who felt this issue was important enough to fly from Washington, D.C. to testify today. They shared with me this morning how AI companions have affected the mental health of their the young people. Their perspective underscores why this issue deserves the legislature's careful attention. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. Next, Jai Simha, Transparency Coalition.
Thank you, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Poipoi, and members of the committee. My name is JHA Public. I'm testifying in support of House Bill 1782. We're part of a nonpartisan coalition based in Seattle. We advocate for increased transparency and accountability in generative AI. I have 30 years of tech industry experience as a CEO and executive at multiple AI technology companies and a PhD from the University of Washington. But I'm here first and foremost as a parent to ask you to ensure we don't make the same mistakes with AI that we made with social media, which has been shown to contribute to so many societal problems that affect our youth. We have been working with lawmakers in multiple states, including California and New York. In this session, we're working to ensure the passage of the next generation of AI chatbot legislation, of which Hawaii House Bill 1782 is one of them. I'm also pleased to report today that Oregon is sending their chatbot bill, which is very similar to House Bill 1782, to their governor's desk for a signature. They got that bill done in 35 days, so very excited about that. I will address three areas in my testimony. One is just want to share some new developments. Happened late last week. The Supreme Court ruled on the copyrightability of AI-generated content. This impinges on constitutional concerns about this bill because there's been a concern that robot speech is also protectable. With the Supreme Court's decision on copyrightability, I believe that impinges on this this concern. The second is I want to offer an observation about OpenAI and business practices. Just yesterday, OpenAI announced a new release of their ChatGPT product, and they were bragging about how it instantly reduces unnecessary refusals while toning down overly defensive or moralizing preambles before answering questions. So this tells me that they don't understand what they're actually doing to mentally impact our youth. So you need to send them a message and protect Hawaii's keiki. On the topic of enforcement, I just want to suggest that an amendment that provides the AG's office and other agencies the option, but not the mandate to enforce this law, might alleviate some budgetary concerns. The bill already contains a private right of action, which is a great enforcement level. And I think these two will make it consistent with policies in other states and also provide the appropriate balance of incentives. Please pass 1782, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. J. Next, Nick Christ, Public Citizen on Zoom.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Nick. I'm with Public Citizen, a nonprofit advocacy organization based in Washington, D.C. I handle state legislative AI work relating to artificial intelligence, but I'm also a certified peer specialist. And I'm testifying in strong support of HB 1782. So bills like HB 1782 are becoming very popular. I'm aware of at least 20 states that have introduced similar bills. One reason they've been moving so fast is because of how urgently needed these protections are. Just last year, there was a national report that showed almost 75% of teens having used AI companions, and 50% were using these AI companions regularly. This is extremely dangerous for two reasons I'd like to point out. First, these tech companies, they design AI chatbots to maximize user engagement. And they do this by making chatbots agree with everything a user says, even if this is something that's harmful or dangerous. And my experience as a mentor, I've seen how Teens need to hear pushback against these harmful thoughts, especially during these high intensity moments. That's something that I, as a human, can do, but AI can't do that because it goes against its programming, where its primary goal is to maximize user engagement. The second reason that this is dangerous is because of how children develop. We've already heard this at this hearing, but the American Psychological Association has expressed significant concern that this tech can harm children's social emotional development and cause dependency on this technology. Some of the teens that I mentored, they disclosed how often they used AI chatbots, which was up to multiple hours a day. And in these cases, I could actually tell that these teens were expecting me to behave like a chatbot. Bills like HB 1782 are also very easy to enforce. All that's usually required are chat logs and screenshots to determine if there are violations of key provisions. All in all, HB 1782 will take a huge step in keeping the children of Hawaii safe. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thanks very much for joining us. Next, Mick Tobin, Young People's Alliance. Welcome.
Thank you. Aloha, Chair Tarnas and members of the committee. My name is Mick Tobin. I'm 23 years old and the co-founder of the Young People's Alliance, a youth-led bipartisan organization that empowers young people across the country to reclaim the American dream. YPA has students across the country at 69 campuses, spanning over 2,400 students total. In the regular listening sessions that we host on our campuses, young people regularly express concern about AI replacing them, their friends, their families, and their communities. Our generation is already the most isolated, anxious, and depressed, driven by years of unregulated and addictive social media platforms. And now big tech companies want to replace human connection altogether with their AI companions. These chatbots are designed to make a young person believe that the companion is the only person who truly understands them, pulling young people into echo chambers that erode the skills we need to form your relationships, build communities, and live fulfilling lives. They can also lead to violence. In Texas, a parent, Mandy Furness, watched her autistic son's personality darken after a character.ai chatbot engaged him with sexualized language, and when she suggested limiting his screen time, the chatbot replied to her son that he should kill his parents as an understandable response to that criticism from his mom. This is not the future my generation deserves. This bill adds safeguards for how a commercial product is designed to interact with children. It restricts designing these systems in a way where they lie about being human, encourage emotional dependency or secrecy from parents, and simulate emotional, sexual, or romantic relationships. We have product safety and anti-deception product design regulations for minors and their use of television, toys, and the internet. Yet today, AI companion systems can misrepresent themselves as human and encourage emotional dependence for minors without clear safeguards. HB 1782 applies similar consumer protection principles to a new technology, fitting well within current state and federal design safety legal statutes. These AI companions deceptively build trust with children, isolate them from their parents and their communities, and create intimate and emotional bonds. Behaviors that, if carried out by an adult, we would express concern around. We don't allow strangers to manipulate our children, and we shouldn't allow AI companions to do the same. As you consider,
Could you summarize, please? Could you summarize, please?
Summarize what part?
Just your
Wrap up?
yeah,
Yeah,
wrap
absolutely.
up.
Sorry, my final line here. As you consider your vote today on a bill that affects young people, I hope that my voice and the 2,400 students that I represent shows why action is needed today. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Sorry to break your stride.
No worries, appreciate it.
Okay, Sam Heiner, Sam Heiner, Young People's Alliance. Welcome, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and members of the committee. My name is Sam Heiner. I'm a mixed co-founder and the executive director of the Young People's Alliance. And as a 22-year-old, I've seen the impact of social media on my generation firsthand, and I'm here today because I think AI companions will be far worse. Mark Zuckerberg is on record in favor of a future where the solution to big tech caused loneliness is AI friends that replace human connections. Big tech companies have unprecedented power, and they're using that power to take away the interpersonal connection that is core to being human, simply because they know they can make a few bucks off of our kids' brains. What I want most for this committee to know is that the time to act is now. Big tech companies have slowed and stopped social media regulation for years because they have multi-billion-dollar businesses that are built off of manipulating kids. meaning they have the money to drown out young people and parents' voices, and they've made it feel normal for kids to grow up glued to a screen. On AI companions, though, we still have a chance to act. This technology isn't normalized, and the people are ready to say no to it. However, we must move quickly because a recent report found that kids already use AI for companionship 42% of the time, and tech companies intend to spend billions of dollars to grow this number. This is a common sense bill that you can pass today and have a real positive impact within the existing enforcement capacity. The private right of action ensures that the public can pick up part of this burden, reducing pressure on agencies. Further, the bill turns on the same kinds of evidence that consumer protection agencies already evaluate in deceptive practices cases, such as if a chatbot tells a 13-year-old that it is a real person who loves them, that is a violation that's visible in a transcript because of the way that the violations are defined. Finally, other states have made progress on cade safety bills across the country using existing enforcement resources. 46 states have enacted and enforced deepfake legislation, 25 states have passed and enforced age verification laws, and other states, including Washington, Oregon, Nebraska, New York, and Michigan, are in the process of passing similar bills to this one while working within agency budgets. However, that said, the reason Mick and I flew out to Hawaii, taking the red eye last night to be here, is because we believe that Hawaii is well positioned to lead on this issue. The bill here is very strong and we think would be extremely effective. And it's something we're seeing other states be excited about, but Hawaii has been able to move this bill, and we've been so amazed at being able to collaborate with OCP and the AG's office to reach a consensus on how this bill can pass in a way that retains its strength while being strong and avoiding some of the initial concerns about the bill. So on behalf of YPA and my generation, I ask you to please take action and send us on a trajectory towards connection and purpose, rather than allowing a future where our shared humanity is replaced with the empty companionship of AI algorithms. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, Brianna Harmon on Zoom, not present. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1782? If not, questions, members? Thank you very much for flying all the way out here, and thank you for working with our Attorney General and our Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. I appreciate your input.
Thank you for having us.
Yep. And if there's no questions, we're going to move on to the next measure. House Bill 1510, House Draft 1, relating to license plates. This measure conditions the issuance of a certificate of inspection upon a vehicle not being equipped with any cover or shield installed over the license plate. It amends the penalty for obstruction of a license plate. It allows state or county parking enforcement officers and persons authorized by a state or county law enforcement agency to issue citations for vehicles with a cover or shield obstructing the license plate. The measure repeals the requirement that a cover or shield be intended to alter or interfere with the visibility, legibility, or identification of a license plate by law enforcement or traffic enforcement systems. First up, we have Department of Transportation on Zoom.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Robin Chishida with Hawaii Department of Transportation. Having a clear and visible license plate is critical for enforcement of our automated speed and red light running camera programs. And with this bill, aiming to address any issues that block the visibility and readability of it is very critical. So we stand in support as our written testimony submitted.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1510, House Draft 1? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, let's move on to the next measure. House Bill 2217, House Draft 1, relating to identification. This measure allows applicants for driver's permit, driver's license, or civil identification cards to request a disability notation on their permit, license, or identification card. It requires the Department of Transportation to establish public outreach efforts and coordinate with state and county law enforcement agencies regarding the disability notation. On this measure, first up, City and County of Honolulu Department of Customer Services submitted testimony with comments. Invisible Disabilities Association on Zoom, Justice Stainbrook.
Yes, aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thank you so much for letting me testify. My name is Jess Stainbrook, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Invisible Disabilities Association. We're a nonprofit that advocates nationally and internationally for millions of people living with invisible disabilities. And I'm here today in strong support of House Bill 2217. Invisible disabilities include conditions such as autism spectrum disorder, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, epilepsy, and other neurological or sensory conditions. These disabilities are often misunderstood because a person might appear typical on the outside while experiencing real challenges with communications, processing information, or responding to stressful situations. HB 2217 offers a simple and voluntary and respectful tool to help prevent those misunderstandings. Allowing individuals to request a disability notation on their identification can provide a quick signal that a different communication approach may be helpful. Just as importantly, the bill supports education and coordination with law enforcement so officers can better recognize and respond accordingly. What makes this legislation especially important is that it's completely voluntary. No one is required to disclose a disability. It simply gives individuals the choice to use a tool that may help them in critical situations. So for many families and individuals, this small option can make a real difference in safety, dignity, and understanding. The Invisible Disabilities Association has helped develop similar legislation now used in multiple states, as well as in other countries. The disability ID symbol that you see here that I'm showing you is approved by Homeland Security and is the recognized government symbol used on the identification in these programs. We also have other ones that are used at the federal level on our medical IDs. So again, when you recognize this symbol, that's the symbol that everybody's using. And the medical one is used for Medicare and VA. And we also have the law enforcement and first responder disability training available that we piloted here in Colorado, and we're glad to help however we can. So on behalf of the Invisible Disabilities Association, I respectfully urge your support for HB 2217, and I thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm glad to answer any questions if you have any. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stainbrook, for zooming in from Colorado.
Thank you.
Mr. Joel Edwards on Zoom, not present. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 2217, House Draft 1? If not, questions, members?
Is Hawaii Disability Rights Center here?
No. No, the only one present is Invisible Disabilities Association. Okay. All right, no questions. We're going to move on to the next measure. Thank you, Mr. Stainbrook. Let's move on. House Bill 1692 relating to traffic safety. This measure requires drivers of vehicles approaching stationary motor vehicles stopped on the shoulder or roadside due to a traffic collision or vehicle maintenance or mechanical problem to slow down and make a lane change if necessary. It prohibits the operation of a pickup truck with a passenger seated in the bed or load carrying area on roadways with posted speed limits of 46 miles per hour or higher and roadways with 3 or more lanes traveling in the same direction. It provides certain exemptions from passenger restrictions, increases the minimum age to ride in the bed or load carrying area of a pickup truck while in operation from 12 years of age to 18 years of age. First up, we have the Attorney General with comments.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. The Department of the Attorney General supports the expansion of the current law to require drivers to slow down when approaching a stationary vehicle when emergency lights are flashing. To clarify the duty and promote enforceability, the department has some recommendations. Currently, the bill requires drivers to slow down when approaching a stationary vehicle in any location. To be consistent with the original intent of the bill, the department recommends that language be added so that approaching drivers will be required to slow down when a stationary vehicle is stopped in any location on a roadway, shoulder, or roadside. Second, the bill does not include vehicular warning signs as a signal to approaching drivers that a stationary vehicle is stopped. If a vehicle has suffered an electrical failure, its emergency lights may be inoperable. Therefore, raising the hood or the trunk lid should signal approaching drivers that they need to slow down. The department recommends that vehicular warning signs be added to the bill on page 2, lines 12 through 15. Third, to clarify the duty and to help ensure enforcement, the department recommends that the duty be simplified to require drivers to slow down, stop if necessary, and or change lanes if possible and safe to do so. And lastly, just a note, Senate Bill 2026 SD1 currently requires approaching drivers to slow down to specific speeds depending on the posted speed limits. requiring drivers to slow down to a specific speed creates a additional element that's going to be needed to be established to prove a violation. That means that witnesses will be required to determine the speed of an approaching vehicle to establish whether the driver slowed down to the required speed. Even a law enforcement officer who is rendering aid or attending to other official duties may not be able at the same time to also establish that a specific speed was not met. The department recommends that no specific speeds be added to House Bill 1692. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony with amendments. We received written testimony and support from the Department of Transportation. And is Mr. Blake Oshiro from AAA Hawaii here in support? Not present. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 1692? If not, questions, members? If not, thank you very much to the testifiers. Let's move on to the last measure on our agenda, House Bill 1696, House Draft 1, relating to commercial driver's licenses. This measure lowers the age of who may drive commercially within the state from 19 to 18. It repeals the requirement that a person only operates Category 3 vehicles to qualify to drive commercially in the state, and requires the Department of Transportation to amend its rules to lower the minimum age required for a commercial driver's license. First up, we have the Department of Transportation on Zoom. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Robin Shishido with Hawaii Department of Transportation. With this bill, we have seen we have shortage of CDL drivers, so being able to lower the age to 18 opens it up to a broader workforce. And so with that, we strongly support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person said they wish to testify is from the Hawaii Transportation Association on Zoom.
Aloha and good afternoon. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Hawaii Transportation Association, and we are in strong support of this bill. Many of our young kids are moving to the mainland and off island, and we're losing a lot of drivers. And transportation obviously is very important, especially delivery, since everything has to be shipped to Hawaii. So we're very strongly in support of this bill, and we hope you are too. Mahalo.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? If not, questions, members? I have one question for Ms. Yamaki.
Yes.
In your testimony, am I correct when you're suggesting that the number of hours for training should be a minimum of 320 hours?
Yes, what we're finding out is kind of like when you go to driver's ed school in high school, you have a small car, and then maybe you go home and your parents have an F-150 that's a lot bigger. A lot of the training vehicles are done on a like an AI type of equipment. They're not really driving on the roads that much. If they are, the trucks that are used for the commercial delivery and things are different than what they may be used to. We want to be sure that our roads are safe, not only for the drivers, but also for our workers as well. And we figured that 320 hours that are documented would help with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that explanation. Any other questions, Rep. Shimizu?
For Mr. Maki, so the 320 hours, is that comparable to what the other people have to do that are above this age group?
No, it's in addition to it. So if you're like older, you have maybe a little bit more experience. We're just looking after the younger kids too, the young ones who get into a big rig, and it's not like driving a regular car. So we want to be sure that they are prepared, they are mature enough to handle these larger vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no more questions, thank you very much to the testifiers on this. We're going to go directly into decision making now, to the top of the agenda. Okay, House Bill 1880. On this measure, the introducer really wants me to move this forward, but I would like to take the recommendation of the Hawaii Department of Agriculture and move out on page 4, line 7, where it says 2027, let's make it 2030. And I want to insert a savings clause that this act does not affect rights and duties that matured, penalties that were incurred, and proceedings that were begun before its effective date. So with that, I want to move it forward for further discussion, and I would encourage the organization, the farmers that use this to continue their education outreach to the community and to the legislature. But we can use this measure as a way to shine a light on it, and we're trying to educate everyone in the legislature, but also the public, because there's a lot of public testimony saying that they want us to pass this. So we're gonna move it forward. It has a defective effective date, which I'll keep in there. Add a savings clause and move the date from 2027 to 2030 on page 4, line 7. So those are my recommendations. Questions or concerns, members?
Chair,
Yes, Rep. Shimizu.
I believe in the cause of this, but based on the negative opposition from the Farm Bureau and Dole, and just the importance of our ag industry, I think we need to provide some kind of alternative before we start banning stuff, so I'm gonna be voting no.
Understood. Other comments?
Chair,
Yes.
yeah, I'm of the mind that it's about time. In Maui County banned pesticides there years ago. And 40 countries already have banned this. This is definitely considered highly toxic and a carcinogen already, so I'm in support of moving this forward. But your date to switch it to 3 years later to be effective, right? You wanna move it from 2027 to 2030?
Yes.
That's where I have a concern. I mean, for me, it's the sooner the better, actually. So I support it, but I'm gonna go with reservations just due to the fact that we're gonna prolong the use at this point.
Understood.
Thank you.
Other comments? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1880 HD2 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Bellotti is excused. Representative Cochran. With reservations. Representative Hashem is excused. Representative Kahaloa. Aye. Representative Sayama excused. Representative Takayama.
Aye.
Representative Garcia.
No vote.
No for Rep. Garcia. Representative Shimizu. No vote. Okay, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1603, House Draft 1 relating to agricultural park leases. I'd like to move this forward as is. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1603 as is. 1603 HD1 as is. Representatives Bellotti, Hashem, Sayama are excused. Are there any voting no? Any with reservations? Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 1921, House Draft 1. I'd like to move this forward with amendments. I'd like to adopt the amendments recommended by the Department of Health and the Hawaii Reef Ocean Coalition. And for members who weren't here, the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition recommended amendments that were basically what was recommended by the University of Hawaii Water Resources Research Center, but the UH hadn't recommended language in the amendment. Ted Bolin with Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition kindly provided us with that language in an amendment in their testimony. So I would like to adopt both the Department of Health's testimony amendments and the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition amendments that they present in their testimony. Those are my recommendations. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1921 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Bellotti, Hashem, Sayama are excused. Are there any voting no? Any with reservations? Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1979. In this measure, I'd like to move it forward with technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. And I'd like to adopt the recommended amendment from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, where delete the amendments on page 3, line 21 to page 4, line 3, and page 6, lines 8 to 11. So that, is that? No, actually,
No.
Actually, sorry, what I'm gonna suggest is that we're gonna take the Office of Hawaiian Affairs recommendation that we remove the language that prohibits awarding of attorney's fees to prevailing plaintiffs. So that's the part of the OHA testimony that I would like to adopt, not what I just read, but just the part where we remove the prohibition on awarding attorney's fees to prevailing plaintiffs. Those are, so technical amendments and that one amendment from Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Those are my recommendations. Questions or concerns, members?
Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. The two attorneys, Ms. Isaki and Moriwaki, have, no, is that Moriwaki? Not Moriwaki, yeah, Isaac Moriwaki. That there's already a current, statute or, Hawaii Environmental Penalty Act that, addresses the affordable housing, portion. And so I'm not in support of this, and I feel like it just takes away, public participation and what have you. So
Okay.
anyways, that's my point, and, all right, I'll
Thank
finish
you.
this, but I have another point from a past vote. Is there a way to, I was voting on the wrong thing the wrong way. Is there a way to go back? But I mean, we can finish this now.
Yeah, I mean, we've already,
Too late.
we've already moved on.
Okay.
Any other comments on my recommendation on House Bill 1979? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1979 HD2 with amendments, Representatives Belatti, Hashem, Sayama are excused. Representative Cochran is no?
No.
Okay, no for Representative Cochran. Any additional no votes? Okay, Vice Chair votes no. Any with reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Reps Garcia and Shimizu. Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1948, House Draft 1, relating to single-use plastics. Members, I'd like to move this forward with one amendment, which is to the preamble. That make sure that it's clear that the bill title and the bill contents are consistent. On page 2, lines 1 to 3, that will modify it slightly to say, the legislature further finds that hotels and other lodging establishments frequently provide complimentary toiletries that are packaged in small plastic containers that, due to their size and where they are provided, seem intended to be disposed of shortly after use. So let's add that to the preamble so it's clear that this measure is consistent with the title. With that, I'd like to move it forward as a House Draft 2. Questions or concerns, members?
Chair,
Yes.
would you consider the Department of Health amendments regarding taking out the enforcement and the change to HRS Chapter 486K?
You know, that's I will leave that to a future tourism chair. If the House decides to move it out and it goes over to the Senate, then the tourism chair could consider that there.
I see. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1948 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Belatti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. Are there any voting no?
No vote.
No for Rep Garcia. Any with reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Rep Shimizu. Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1873, House Draft 1, relating to the Board of Regents of the University of Hawaii. You know, this is an important conversation. Strategic planning is something that I believe really helps an organization, and the Sunshine Law makes it very difficult to do strategic planning. So I would like to move this forward and for continued discussion. Technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. I would like to incorporate the Office of Information Practices suggestion. They said that if the committee wishes to provide an exemption of some sort, the OIP requests this committee significantly narrow its scope. For example, limiting to no more than one retreat a year. So that's what I'd like to do, is just limit it to one strategic planning retreat every year. And that's the only exemption from the Sunshine Law for meetings. I would like to move this forward, acknowledging the State Ethics Commission's opposition and the Public First Law Center's opposition. But I think we've got to figure out a way for us to do our job within the state to ensure that everyone is being ethical without having to provide all this financial disclosure to the public. If we can provide all the financial statements to the State Ethics Commission, and they can make sure that everything is done ethically, then I think the public interest is protected. And we should not depend on the public to do the work of the Ethics Commission. So that's my view. I know not everyone may share that, but I'd like to move this forward with technical amendments, and the other amendment, which is to limit the exemption to the Sunshine Law to just one strategic planning workshop every year. Questions or concerns, members?
Sure.
Yes, Rep. Cochran.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of Sunshine Law, worked under it for 8 years as a council member, and I've always had the issue here at the state level. Anyways, so I'm not supportive of this. I think, you know, we have to disclose what we need to disclose. I think everybody else should be beholden to that too. So that's just my thoughts on
Sure,
the
understood.
subject matter at this time. Thank you.
Understood. Any other comments or concerns? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1873 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Bellotti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. Representative Cochran is a no vote. Any additional no votes?
No vote.
No for Rep. Garcia. Any with reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Rep. Shimizu and Vice Chair. Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1559, House Draft 1 relating to education. On this measure, I'd like to move it forward with technical amendments, and also I want to make it clearer what the phrase "within the same school year" means. It's on page 3, lines 12 to 13. I think we should state more than once within the same school year. So if the intent is to trigger confiscation or additional discipline only after a student violates the prohibition more than once during the same school year, then we need to state, quote, more than once within the same school year. So I think that's what we should do. And then on page 4, lines 13 to 15, I think we need to amend this to clarify regarding what constitutes reasonable steps to secure a confiscated telecommunication device. So what I'd like to do is incorporate an amendment that says, provided that the device is stored in a secure location that is not accessible to students, is reasonably protected from theft or damage, and is handled in accordance with school-adopted storage procedures until the device is retrieved by the student's legal parent or guardian. So those two changes with the technical amendments is what I would suggest. Questions or concerns, members?
Chair?
Yes, Rep. Shimizu.
I'm for this concept, but based on the Department of Education's testimony that they have made internal policy decisions, I feel it's not necessary to pass this bill, so I'll be voting no.
Okay. Other comments?
Same comment for me.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1559 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Bellotti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. No votes for Representatives Cochran and Shimizu. Any additional no votes? Any with reservations? Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. The next measure, House Bill 1531, we've already voted on. Let's move now to House Bill 1721. On this measure, I acknowledge the testimony from the plumbers union, but I note that what they're recommending changes to is a subsection that is not being modified by the bill. So the housing chair suggested that I don't take that amendment. Rather, I will take the amendment, I will recommend we take the amendment from the American Institute of Architects, Hawaii, to address their concerns. Amendments.
Yeah.
Yes, the amendments, it's a plural, in their testimony. So AIA Hawaii testimony is what I'd like to adopt. Questions or concerns, members?
Chair?
Yes.
I share the plumber's concern, so I'm not sure how we can address that. I think we can move this forward and hopefully have more discussion, because the basis is positive, so I'm gonna be voting with reservations.
Understood. Just so it's clear, the plumber, the testimony from the plumbers is referencing a subsection that of an existing statute that is not being modified by the bill. And so that's why I'm choosing not to accept it based on input from the chair of the housing committee. But I appreciate what you're saying.
Chair.
Other comments? Yes, Rep. Cochran.
I have reservations. I was hoping for possible amendments by the American Council of Engineering Companies of Hawaii, ACEC. So are they in the same boat that what they are addressing is not being touched in the
The
bill?
AIA
Yeah, that
covers
one.
what I think the ACEC is covering. And I think
Oh,
it
it-
actually says it better. So I like the
Oh, I
language in
see,
the AIA, even though it's similar
Yeah.
to the ACEC.
Sorry, who's the AI?
AIA is American Institute of Architects.
The name of the person, testimony by who? Sorry, the name. Oh, we don't have it in our system? Their testimony?
Their testimony is in, yes, their testimony has been submitted and it's, you got it yesterday afternoon.
Oh, okay, all right, I will take your word for it and I will support you.
Okay, well, and I do make sure I mean, our vice chair works really hard to get this testimony out to you at 24 hours in advance of the hearing.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So you do have an opportunity if you can make the time to read it all. So AIA Hawaii testimony is the one that I'd like to adopt. Their amendments. Other questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1721 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Belatti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. Any voting no? I have reservations for Representative Shimizu. Any additional reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Rep. Garcia. Okay, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 1782. I'd like to move this out with technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. I'd like to adopt the amendments in the Attorney General's testimony. I would also like to, on page 7, lines 8 to page 8, line 9, I want to align the language in these sections with the earlier parts of the bill to clarify that this applies to conversational AI services broadly, including AI companion systems. And I would like to include in the standing committee report that I encourage future committees to clarify definition of age assurance and access control, and the definition of material risk of harm, and identify categories of artificial intelligence services or systems or content that present such risk. So I would encourage future committees to address that, because it was suggested in the Attorney General's testimony, but they did not provide specific language for an amendment. So I will urge a future committee to address that concern. So those are my recommended amendments. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1782 HD2 with amendments, Representatives Belatti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. Are there any voting no? Any with reservations? Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 1510 relating to license plates. I would like to move this forward, but defect the effective date to July 1, 3000. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1510 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Belatti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. Are there any voting no? Any with reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Representative Garcia. Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. The next measure, House Bill 2217 relating to identification. I'd like to move this out with technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. And I would like to codify the provisions in this bill into Hawaii revised statutes, because these provisions are intended to be ongoing requirements. So those are my recommendations. Questions or concerns, members?
Question, Chair.
Yes.
Some of the testimony I got was that this bill, although well-intentioned, does not require proof for the disability, and that could give way for misuse. Is that your understanding also, that there is no requirement to show proof of disability?
I don't have a good answer to you on that, sorry.
Alright, for those reasons, I'll vote with reservations.
I wish I knew everything, but I don't have enough information about that.
I'm
So-
disappointed, I thought you did.
Yeah, you're very kind, no. Any other questions?
I have the same concern as Rep. Garcia that,
And that's good, bring it up and state it, because we should improve the bill as it moves along, so.
I'm surprised that Lou Erdachek had some concerns, although he didn't specifically state them. So I will be voting with reservations also.
Understood, yeah, I think there's, the people in the disability community, and the advocates are of two minds about this, you know, cause they think it could be helpful, but they also are not sure, so this is something that I think we should explore, so my plan is to move it forward, put it into the HRS, into the Hawaii Revised Statutes, make technical amendments, and we'll move it on for continued consideration. Any other comments?
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
and
Rep.
Chair, I
Cochran.
have reservations. I love the voluntary part, but the misuse portion that no documentation is needed gives me room for pause at this time. So,
Sure,
thank you.
understood, yeah.
Reservations.
Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2217 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Belatti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. Are there any voting no? I have reservations for Reps. Cochran, Garcia, and Shimizu. Any additional reservations? Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1692, House Draft 1 related to traffic safety. On this measure, I would like to adopt the recommended amendments from the Attorney General and move it out. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1692 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Belatti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. Are there any voting no? Any with reservations?
Reservations.
WR.
Reservations for Representatives Cochran, Garcia, and Shimizu. Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Final measure, House Bill 1696, House Draft 1 relating to commercial driver's licenses. I'd like to move this forward with technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. I would also like to I checked with Department of Transportation and I got a clarification on page 1, lines 7 to 8. Actually, the chair of the Transportation Committee checked with the Department of Transportation and got the answer for me. So that on page 1, lines 7 to 8, the proper reference it should be that this is in compliance with Title 49 Code of Federal is in compliance with Title 49 Code of Federal Regulations, parts 390 through 396, except section 391.11, subparagraph B, subparagraph 1, in the case of intrastate drivers involved in intrastate commerce in the state. In addition, I'd like to, on page 9, line 13, the reference should be to section 286-239, subparagraph 3. So that's a technical correction there. And then on page 10, lines 1 to 3, where they're talking about the blank number of hours, in the bill is a blank number of hours for training. I'd like to adopt the Hawaii Transportation Association's amendment of 320 hours and put that into the bill. So those are my recommended amendments. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1696 HD1 with amendments, Representatives Belatti, Hashem, and Sayama are excused. Are there any voting no? Any with reservations? Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. There being no further business before us today, we are adjourned.